McDaniel can't move on it. Now he does. The shot, passing down. Rebound, score!
Hey, welcome to the Toe and the Crease podcast, where we talk about anything and everything to do with the NHL. I'm SJ. That's the co-host WillyDubz over there.
What's up, everyone? Just a quick disclaimer before we start. For anyone that's listening to the last podcast, I don't know if maybe my audio was a little bit loud. Tried to fix that in post editing, but if it was still a little bit loud, apologies there. We should have it addressed for this week. I think I figured out what the issue was anyways, so...
That's not the intro I expected, but all right. So anyways, moving on. Yeah, we are in the midst of some really intense NHL playoff races right now. Not for who's going to get in, but just for seeding. I mean, the Metropolitan minus Washington just feels like it's like the slow class, but the Atlantic right now is brutal because it feels like everyone's trying to avoid that 2-3 matchup. And then the West, the wild card race is super intense. I didn't think it would be down to 4, but we're basically down to like 4 teams for one spot between Utah, St. Louis, Calgary, and Vancouver.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the standings earlier too, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a." I'm a fan of these playoff races personally. I don't like it when it's already all said and done, and everyone's just kind of playing the consolation games. So it's going to be kind of cool to see who gets that final spot. And again, I've been following the thing in the East, or at least the Atlantic Division, just because I'm a Leafs fan. So I'm praying we don't end up in the 2 or 3 slot and just end up having to play either one of Tampa or Florida round 1. And having a look at it right now, I think it's the Panthers have played 69 games and they have 87 points. The Leafs have played 69 games, they have 87 points. The Lightning have a game in hand but have 85 points. So if they win, we're all on 87 and it's a total clusterfuck.
No, it's crazy because the 2-3 matchups in both the Atlantic and Central are going to be in. You basically have Dallas and Colorado pretty much locked in for 2-3, which I'm going to say this: if Miro is not healthy for that matchup, it's over. I don't see a way Dallas can win that without a healthy Heiskanen. And then the 2-3 matchup between whoever's path is that 2-3 in the Atlantic will be crazy because you have to win that, then face the 1 seed in the Atlantic, and then probably face Washington to end. That's going to be one of the toughest paths to the finals if you have to go that route.
I will say though, if you get through that path, I feel like you can definitely say you earned your way to the Cup Finals. It doesn't
100%.
feel like one of those.
100%.
Doesn't feel like the Oilers getting the free path until the Western Conference Finals kind of thing. Because I think that's what happened last year, right? Was that what happened last year with the Oilers? They kind of, I don't want to say free
I mean, the Canucks did go down to 7, but I know what you mean. There's some years where you look at some teams' paths and you're like, wait, what happened? Like, I remember when the Sabres made the Cup final in 99. Maybe I just didn't rate the East that highly, but that path was pretty mediocre, I would say. I mean, no offense, because I know the Leafs were the team in the Eastern Conference Finals, but overall, compared to what Dallas went through, where it's like Detroit and Colorado to get there, not even comparable.
You took out two of the late 90s juggernauts, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And the other thing, too, is the injuries are starting to play a role, too, because like I said, Heiskanen's been out for Dallas. Draisaitl and Draisaitl might be out for a couple games. McDavid might be out for a little bit, too. Again, Minnesota literally has their entire parts of their offense and defense just decimated right now. Although they're holding their own against like the bottom teams of the West, so good on them. All these injuries are really going to start to add up. So it's going to be interesting to see how they affect seeding as well. Like you could see the difference with Florida too, without Ekblad and with Ekblad. It makes a massive difference on what their defense is capable of. So again, it's going to be really interesting to see how everything plays out.
Well, I was going to say in the Ekblad case too, I think he's missing the first 2 games of the playoffs too. So I wonder if Florida gets down in an 0-2 hole, as good as a team as they are, I do wonder if you go down 2 games to either one of the Leafs or the Lightning. Leafs, I'm a little bit less worried about.
That's why I think the 1 seed matters to them more than both of the other 2, the Leafs and the Lightning. Obviously, like the Leafs, you kind of want that little boost of like, oh, we don't have to play one of these teams. But I think from a health standpoint and like being ready for what the peak of that team is going to be, I think Florida definitely needs that 1 seed more.
Well, with the Tkachuk injury too, right? Tkachuk's out for the rest of the regular season. They don't know when he's going to be back in the playoffs. And I think same thing with Marchand too, right? Because I think Marchand, they're not sure when he's going to be back. So
injuries,
a few key injuries there, I'd say.
The funniest thing too is like the Metro's such a mess right now. I think the Isles are fourth, which like how
Somebody has to explain to me how the Islanders keep pulling off their bullshit because it just doesn't.
bro?
Make
They
any
literally
sense at all.
traded away arguably their best center, right?
Yeah,
They're somehow the Metro is so bad that with games in hand, they're somehow the fourth best team. It's hilarious to me.
and they're 2 points out of a playoff spot, or wild card spot essentially. So somehow they still got a chance for the playoffs despite trading their best. Well, probably their second or third best player, arguably.
Yeah,
I'll say third best probably, but
is there some Ewing theory potential with Brock Nelson? We have to figure this out.
is this in reference to when the Knicks made the finals and then Ewing was like kind of hurt for the like?
Yeah, so Ewing theory is like a Bill Simmons thing where it's like if they trade away or get rid of the good player, the team's better. So the best example is Bryce Harper that year where they lost him in free agency and then the Nats went on to win the World Series. That I think is the ultimate example of Ewing theory. Is there some Ewing theory potential with Brock Nelson? We have to figure this out.
I mean, if they want to try that, they might as well get rid of Dobson and Sorokin while they're at it too.
Maybe the thing is Brock Nelson actually is like 40 years old and getting rid of him made the team younger.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say if you getting rid of him definitely made the team younger regardless, but he does. I swear, he genuinely looks like he's 45 in his photo.
No, it's crazy. I can't even say it's the gray hair because like Ovechkin has gray hair and he doesn't look as old, which is crazy because I'm sure Ovechkin like does not take care of himself in the same way Brock Nelson does.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was gonna say Ovechkin has a ton of gray hair for, I guess, a guy that's.
To be fair, people gray like depending
at
on
different
genes,
rates.
you gray or like I have gray hair. I'm not even close to old. Like it just
fair.
Sometimes it happens and it's weird because like for me it's like this one tough tier really and like pieces here. It's genetics, I think, to a certain.
Yeah, I was gonna say my family is weird because I think I guess my mother's like in her late 60s. She has a couple of like gray hairs here and there, but it's like, still mostly head of like
Asian
black
people,
hair.
you guys have that cliff thing, right? So like you guys don't age for a long time, and then there's an age where you just age like 30 years.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that hits a
you
lot
guys
later
are
for
like,
me.
you guys are like Dorian Gray, basically. You guys
Okay, fair. That was definitely not something I was expecting to hear today. But okay.
Did you ever watch those old Spider-Man movies? Or sorry, the old Spider-Man TV show where the cartoon where not Green Goblin, the Vulture, I think, is like stealing youth from other people, and then he loses it, and he just ages like 30 years in like a minute. That's basically what.
Well, I was gonna say if he stole youth from a bunch of people, if it all gets taken away from him at once, I assume it makes sense.
That's basically how Asian aging works. That's basically
yeah. I don't think we'll do the podcast long enough for you guys to eventually see me at that point, but maybe who knows? Maybe if somehow we can pull it off, you'll see when I age 30 years. So yeah.
I will say in general, people age better than they used to. Have you ever seen what like a 35, 40-year-old looked like in like the 80s compared to now? It's crazy.
Well, I think it's better. It's better. I think it's better now, right? Or am I just going crazy?
Well, I mean, okay, surgeries and Ozempic aside, right? Like, I think if I remember correctly, people drink less, like people do drugs less. I know smoking's gone up, but like the other things, and I think people just understand like dieting in general and just taking care of your body better. So that's probably what it is. But like people definitely age
a lot more
better.
Advancements, right?
And you kind of notice it too in like the amount of players that are also just playing till they're later as well. With the exception of Jaromir Jagr. Jaromir Jagr's timeless in any era, but most people,
I was gonna say that was the one guy I was gonna say that definitely just doesn't care about age. I mean, you've seen it in other sports too, right? Like with the NFL, like Tom Brady, like one of the few examples, like into his like mid 40s. I want to say even mid 40s. I think the players are still like they're falling off a cliff around the late 30s, but they're still playing like late into their like.
But if they fall off a cliff, it's because of skill. Usually, it's not because of like physical. Like you see the physical condition of guys in their 30s, it's crazy. Yeah,
the condition's still good. It's the skill that usually falls off. But I think like you still the time still affects you in some ways technically, just not at least not the conditioning part I've seen.
Yeah, no, for sure. So speaking of fall-offs, that actually is a great segue into today's topic. We are doing our annual worst contracts draft. So for people that don't know what this is, I'll admit this is a concept I stole from Bill Simmons. So Bill Simmons every year does the NBA worst contracts draft where they pick the worst contracts in the NBA. We're going to do the same, but for the NHL. So for people that don't know, what we're going to do is we're each going to take turns just picking what we think are the worst contracts in the NHL today. Again, it's not going to be snake. It's not anything formal. Like, I'll take a pick. WillyDubz will take a pick, then me. Couple factors will play a role. One, age. How old is the player? Two, term. How long is the contract? Three, are there any additions to it? Like, if there's a no move clause, a no trade clause, something like that, that obviously makes the contract harder to move, which obviously places it higher on the list. And then also, no guys on LTIR. So Shea Weber's contract will not be a part of this because it got traded again somehow, which I didn't even know still existed.
I actually saw that. I was just like, again, I'm like, this guy's gonna have the most moved contract in the league at this point if it keeps happening.
So yeah,
I think one other one too is I think you mentioned no LTIR. I believe if they've been sent down at any point this year,
yeah,
and even if they come back up, I'd say we probably don't want to include them because they can. Probably
no guys that went through waivers, no guys that were bought out. So stuff
so
like
no
that.
Grubauer, for example, no Grubauer, no
exactly.
Jari. Even though they're back with their teams right now, they technically got sent down and went through waivers.
So, and there's a couple things with this. One, you can play yourself off this list because a couple years ago, I would have said Sergei Bobrovsky would have been one of the worst contracts in the NHL. Played himself off the list, right? Two, contracts age. Well, also in terms of playing themselves off the list, I argue like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin would have been on this list for me, but they played at least enough to get off this list.
Well, one of them's on LTIR right now, too.
Yeah,
to be fair.
so
but to be fair, before Sagan got hurt, he was, I think, 20 points in 19 games. It was point per game,
Yeah,
so I'm not going to...
right.
You can't put a guy on the list when he's freaking point per game, for Christ's sake, so...
So guys can play themselves off this list. Also, time changes a lot of contracts. Like, a couple years ago, I would have had multiple goalies. I would have had Bobrovsky, I would have had Jack Campbell, I would have had Philip Grubauer. Now...
The problem is, one of them's in the minors, one of them got wavered, and then the other one has played himself off the list.
Exactly. So this can always change. This isn't dynamic. And again, there's no objective ranking to this. It's just our opinions. So with that, we're going to start. Is it okay if I take the first pick here?
I think I know which one you're going for, but we'll see. Okay.
All right. I think this is number one with a silver bullet. So with the first pick in the worst contracts draft, I'm picking Jonathan Huberdeau. There's nobody else. Yep. This has to be number one. Okay. So right now, Jonathan Huberdeau, he's making $10.5 million average annual value. He has a no-move clause, and he has 6 years left on this deal. And for people that don't know how bad this deal has gone, so he went from 0.91 points per game in Florida to 0.69 in Calgary. Like, almost every stat has gone down since going to Calgary. His shots on goal per game are down from 2.35 to 1.75. His primary assists are down. His expected goals are down. Everything is down. He's basically a second liner in production, getting paid like a first liner. And it's not for lack of opportunity either.
Yeah, I was going to say, with Calgary and the team they have right now, I want to say he has every chance to succeed. He's going to get every opportunity to, I guess, play himself off this list. The problem is, I don't want to say he's washed, but he just doesn't look the same player out there anymore. I remember seeing a couple of clips from somebody posted on Twitter last year. I think him just skating into the zone, just stopping up, and then just losing the puck. It just didn't seem like him very much. Plus, I mean, like you mentioned, his shots have gone down. They've also demoted him. I think he's fluctuated between the first, second, third line at various different points. But I argue that's probably based on production more than anything else. And again, he hasn't even gotten 0.7 points per game. And the worst part about this, I think, is ever since he signed the contract, there hasn't even been 1 year where he at least justified it. It's not even like, for example, the first 2 years went well and now he's suddenly fallen off a cliff. The moment he signed that contract, he just hasn't been good.
No, it's been miserable. And Flames fans are begging. They are praying for this guy to play better because if there's one thing this team needs, it's scoring. And even him just getting to 0.8 would be a godsend to this team. Because right now this team is being propped up by Dustin Wolf and their defense. They need this guy to play better. And it's completely changed this contract is so bad. The trade, so for people that don't know, they traded the Flames traded Matthew Tkachuk to the Panthers for Huberdeau and Weegar, and then Flames signed this extension. This contract is so bad right now. If you take Huberdeau out of that trade, it's actually better for the Flames.
I was gonna say too, when that trade happened at the time, I think everyone, gave Calgary props because they made it out of a bad situation.
Best out of a bad situation.
Best out of a bad situation. Exactly. Tkachuk wanted out. They needed to trade him because he wasn't going to sign. They got Huberdeau, who I think was coming off an 115-point season.
Yeah, dude, he was in MVP. Yeah.
And suddenly, it's sad that's gotten to the point where if you'd rather, let Florida keep. You would have rather been like, here, Florida, keep him, and just said we'll take just Weegar.
It's so bad right now. If you told me the trade was just Weegar and a picks for Tkachuk, that's better than what this turned out to be. Because right now, like, you're not moving this deal. There is zero chance you are moving this deal unless, like, actually, I should say never, because, like, guys have gotten moved somehow. But, like, the amount you would have to give up to move this contract, like, in the next 4 years, I think it's insane. To me, this is number one with a speeding. This is number one with the golden gun, no question. Was that your number one on the board too, or? I
was gonna ask if I go first, but since you already took that wasn't it wasn't happening. Because I was gonna say that at least I can make one pick where people don't like. Maybe the comments won't shit on me for this one pick, but we'll see if I get shit on in the comments for any of my other picks. So yeah, I guess maybe I'll go. No debate for sure.
Okay. All right.
So number 2, I'll go for the second pick now. This one, I'm on the fence about this one, but number 2 for me is Darnell Nurse.
Okay, so I didn't have him 2, but okay.
This is a pretty bad contract for those who don't know. So 5 years left at $9.25 million annually. He has a 10-team no trade list for the last 3 years of the deal, but then the next 2 years coming up, full no movement clause. Someone please tell me what they were thinking with that. Ever since this so he signed this contract after putting up a .64 point per game year where he was 7th in Norris voting. But what people failed to notice about that was the COVID year where they had to play all their games against the Canadian teams. And people don't remember, but I hate to say this, apart from Toronto, and maybe,
nice.
I think it was just Toronto.
Winnipeg. Maybe.
And Winnipeg. Every other Canadian team sucked ass that year. Montreal, I know they beat the Leafs in the playoffs that year, so maybe give them a little bit of that. They weren't super great in the regular season. Ottawa wasn't good. Calgary wasn't super great either. And I think Vancouver was still, trying to quote unquote rebuild at that time. I think Pettersson was still on that team. But anyways, so he put up those points against those kind of teams. And he wasn't even a great season either. .64 against super weak competition doesn't scream $9.25 million. And I think the worst part about that too was I think that year he had a shooting percentage of 10%, which is I think almost double his career percentage, which was I think 5% typically. He's around 4.9 to 5%. So the numbers were already unsustainable, but yet Edmonton just decided, hey, let's throw the brink truck to this guy. And the problem now is not only is this contract bad in terms of term and money, but they're gonna eventually have to pay Draisaitl again, right? And they got Draisaitl on one of the Bouchard. They got Draisaitl on one of the most, I guess, team friendly deals possible, given if you look at every other superstar and what they're being paid. And obviously, if I'm Draisaitl, I want to get paid because I already took a pretty reasonable deal last time.
Well, Draisaitl got his money already, right? The 13.
You guys 13, yeah, but you could pay him. But I think with Bouchard, so maybe more Bouchard. My bad. For some reason, I keep thinking he's unsigned. But Bouchard, you have to pay.
I think you're thinking of McDavid.
I think McDavid. Yeah, I'm so confused. Sorry, I'm confusing all the. To be fair, they have to pay They have to pay somebody. Is the point? But you have to pay somebody with.
Dude,
him.
No, if I'm Bouchard, I'm not taking less than 10.5. There is no chance if Nurse is making 9.25. There is no chance I'm taking less than 10.5. Pay me.
I feel like
because what are you gonna do?
I feel like Seth Jones and Darnell Nurse kind of made the market for defense, or made the market for defensemen worse for every other team. Because every other team is now if you pay those guys that much, then anyone 100%. Else better than them has to be more.
Do you remember what the context was for that too? So Edmonton could have paid Darnell Nurse the year before, but they opted not to. And then what happened was, again, Nurse, they didn't have anyone else to pay, and Nurse was basically their number one D-man by default. And then Seth Jones got his deal. And say what you want about Nurse versus Jones. I'm not going to say they're... For sure. But, the thing is, that contract gave Darnell Nurse so much leverage. And, credit to him, he parlayed it. But, that was a weird confluence of factors that fucked over the Oilers. And now, if I'm Bouchard, how am I not asking for 11? What's the Oilers' leverage here? No, you're not going to pay me? Cool, let me go to FA. you can have fun with Darnell Nurse and Matthias Ekholm as your number one D pairing, and you don't have Broberg either. Cool.
Oh, I think, and also just FYI, like Nurse doesn't even play defensive like D pairing 1 minutes right now. So if he sucks playing D pairing 2 minutes, I can't imagine how he does playing playing as on the first defensive pairing against the better players. He's probably just going to get even more exposed, if anything.
The tough thing about Nurse, he's not really great at anything, right? Like he's not the best offensive defenseman on the team. That's easily Bouchard. He's not the best defensive defenseman either. That's Ekholm, right? So like he's paid a lot to be like, I guess like their version of a well-rounded one, but it's weird. He's paid more than guys like Shea Theodore, Roman Yossi, Alex Pietrangelo, and Vince Dunn, Jacob Slavin, guys like that who I take all of them over Darnell Nurse. And yeah, they're paid different in their terms of their contracts, but like they're either good, well-rounded guys like Pietrangelo and Dunn, or they're really good at one thing. Like Theodore and Yossi are really good at offense. Slavin's really good defensively. And Nurse is paid more than all of them, and it's just like how? Well, we know how, but like,
yeah. I was gonna say we know the how part.
If I'm staring at the Oilers cap sheet, I'm just like, if I'm a Oilers fan, I'm like, what the fuck, man?
It's like, how do we fix it? I feel like all the Oilers fans are like, is there going to be some other like contender that wants us to retain like maybe like 25% of it and take the call? I feel like they do the same thing with like what Florida did. They would, if someone came to them and wanted their defenseman and said, hey, retain about 25%. I feel like if you're all the Oilers fans, you're putting Darnell Nurse on that plane. You're saying goodbye.
Another contract to me that's just not getting moved.
Yeah. I mean, we said the same thing about the Seth Jones one, to be fair, but I mean, that's.
I guess if they retain, but like that's different though. Chicago trading a guy.
Well, Chicago's also not trying to contend. Yeah, they're not trying to contend for a cup right now, so they can afford to pay that for the next few years. If you're Edmonton, you can't because I hate to say this, but while you have the two best players in the game, you can't just sit there and be like, yeah, you two can just carry us. Everybody else can suck ass.
Pretty much, yeah. All right, so I'll move on to my pick here. So this was my number 2 pick. It's only because I feel like defensemen are a bit more scarce. I had Nurse at 3. So my number 2 pick, Elias Lindholm. This is already bad. You know that song by Gob? It's all bad, and you know that. This is already bad. He's currently... So Elias Lindholm, $7.75 million AAV. 6 years left, so we're only 1 year into this deal. And a
by the way,
clause.
He has he's a full no movement clause until the last 2 years, where apparently there's only 10 teams he can say like I don't want to go to. But I don't think that makes it any better, anyways. But okay,
he's currently on the third line.
Well, I was gonna say he's not even putting up 0.5 points per game. That was my argument. Like he can't even. They signed him to be their center one, and he's so bad that they'd rather play Pavel Zacha ahead of him.
They signed him to be Bergeron light. Like that was the goal ideally. Yeah, he's currently near 0.52 points per game, which would be his lowest point per game since his age 22 season. So like it hasn't been this bad for a while. And it'd be one thing if he was on like a team like Dallas or like a team like Tampa where you could make the depth argument. He's 5th on his own team in points, and I'm including Marchand in this because he played most of the time. Obviously, played most of the time with Boston. He's 5th on his own team in points behind such luminaries as Pavel Zacha and Morgan Geekie. Like
that's a head shake and a half.
And that's by the way, not for folks what who don't, you signed this guy for. That's
yeah. And for folks who don't know, ever since the Bruins made their moves at the deadline, they've been playing Geekie. Sure, they've been playing Geekie and Zacha, in those prime minutes, but they're not. Zacha's never been a good offensive player, and if he's outscoring you, that's a problem. Plus, for people who don't know, Lindholm had the prime deployment minutes before Zacha at that time, so it's not as if Zacha's had that deployment the whole year, and you can make the argument, sure, Lindholm didn't get a chance. No, they've given him every single fucking chance. They kept him on that power play for pretty much the whole year until I think maybe like now, maybe like a few weeks back, they finally took him off. But they gave him every chance to succeed, and he just hasn't. Like his shots are down this year. I think he has 125 shots right now. He's usually around 170, 180, 140, 150-ish. Like the shots are down. The only thing he's good at is winning faceoffs. But apart from that, I hate to
you did pay him 7.75 to be Alan McCauley. Okay, that's not what we paid him for. Or if I'm a Bruins fan, Like,
Yeah.
it's not like this team doesn't need offense. You don't think like David Pasternak would love a capable center? Somebody's already a point per game with Pavel Zacha, Elias Lindholm, and whoever they've chucked in, which is probably the most impressive thing this year. But like, you don't think they would at least love for him to be a good setup guy to their best player? But no, he can't even do that. And we haven't even. This contract's aged so badly already. We haven't even been a full year into this deal.
Well, I was gonna say too, it's worse for Boston too because they've made the decision to rebuild, and you can't really rebuild when I don't want to say you can't rebuild with that kind of contract on the books, but that contract's just gonna hamper you from like you don't have very much flexibility. You can't do very much with it unless you retain something and trade it. Sure, but no offense, I don't think anyone's coming to you and said, "Hey, we'll take that off your hands."
Yeah, like ain't nobody walking with Elias on this contract. Nope.
Like if you're Chicago, you're like, we'll take the contract. But you got to give us like the bounty.
Dude,
giving us the bounty.
Get the fuck 6 years. No.
Nah, if you give me like 3 or 4 first, yeah, sure. That's why I'm saying bounty. Give me the bounty and I'll take it.
Man, that is horrible. And who says he even wants to go to Chicago? He has a no-move clause.
He has a no-move clause. You can try the last 2 years, but maybe Chicago's better in the last 2 years. He's off the list.
One thing about doing this exercise I realized, teams throw these clauses like candy. Like the amount of I won't say bad players, the amount of non-superstar players that have these clauses are ridiculous.
I think my other takeaway is that I'm not saying we'd be better GMs, but sometimes I really wonder how some of these people got their jobs because even, for example, a guy who just kind of looks at the numbers and looks at the advanced analytics just a little bit, even I look at that and I'm like, I don't think this guy's going to be a great signing. And then, you know, truth behold, they're one of the worst signings in the league kind of thing.
Yeah.
At least the Lindholm one I'll give a little bit of slack for because to be honest, we thought that he'd be a good fit in Boston. So I can't say that one we would have been like, no, we wouldn't have signed Lindholm. Because in hindsight now we would say we wouldn't sign him, but at the time I think when we discussed it, we said that it was actually a good move by Boston, right? So that's the one I'll give a little bit of slack for. But some of these other ones on this list,
so my thing I'll never fault is GMs who make the right move. Like, okay, the Huberto thing, yes, it's number 1 on our list, but at the time, I don't have a problem with it. It aged terribly, yes. But, like, at the time, everybody else would have done it. I don't have an issue with those, right? Yeah, but some of these that are going to come up, like, they were bad when they were signed, and they're worse now. And those are the ones I really take issue with. Like, it's like, for example, when the Stars signed Seguin and Ben, right? Those contracts look like they were going to age badly, but at the time, those were guys who played.
They were good for they were good for at least the first 3-4 years. It's just the problem is in Sagan's case, the injuries hit him. In Ben's case, I think just slow decline.
But like at the time when those guys were signed, they were point per game guys, played mostly 82 games every year, and they took under market deals compared to what they could get in FA. I don't have a problem with those deals because like those are going to happen. You can't predict the future, and I hate when people do that sometimes, but. Some of these,
but there are some contracts I've seen. Like when I was doing this exercise, there are some contracts I've seen where even I at the beginning was like, I wouldn't have done this, and then now they're aging terribly, and I'm like,
Okay,
I wouldn't have done that either. Yeah.
The next pick is that the theme for your next pick or no?
So the next pick, that's kind of the theme for the next one. So okay. I have Damon Severson.
I had him on the list, not as high though.
Not as high. So this one for me is really bad. So he has 6 more years left at 6.25 mil. I think he has a full no movement clause next year. I don't know how a guy like Severson earned that.
That's what I mean. They throw them like they make it rain like Lil Wayne in the club, man. Like,
but they also gave him for after next year. I think for the rest of his contract, he has a 20 team no trade list. So other guys got 10. At least there was only 10 teams you can trade to. No, somehow someone like Severson. You said, okay, we'll only trade you to 1/3 of the league. You get to pick 1/3 of the league. You get to go to.
Do you always, okay, here's my thing before we go to Severson thing. I wish teams had to state who the teams were. Like, so if you have a 10-team no trade clause, I wish each year you had to publish it publicly. I know it'll never happen.
Because right now, the only way we find out that the team is on the list is when a trade gets vetoed. That's the only way we know is like, oh, they refuse to move. And then we're like, okay, no, we know this team's on the list. But the problem is, we only figure out that one of the teams on the list, right? We don't figure out the other 9, 8, or like 14 teams on that list, right? But back to the point of Severson. So on a Columbus team that struggled, defensively and have needed defensemen, There have been times in the season where they have decided, fuck it, we would rather scratch you than play you. And I think that's the biggest one for me. Doesn't matter his numbers. On a team that's struggling to get defensemen out, they'd rather not play him. Like, that's how bad it is. He's also already on the wrong side of he's 30 already, so you can't expect things to get better. So it's not even like, oh, maybe he's young, he'll figure it out. One example I have is, Elias Pettersson's contract, for example, looks bad, but there's at least the hope that maybe this year's just a down year. Maybe he's still young, he can figure it out, right? Like, he's on the right side of 30, right? Severson's already heading towards the wrong side of 30. He's playing on the bottom pairing at 6.25 million. So it's already bad enough that you're playing him down there, because most other teams in the league are paying what, 1 mil league minimum to their bottom six or the last pairing defenseman. They're paying a guy 6.25 mil that they'd rather scratch. His numbers have just gotten worse. Have just gotten progressively worse. I think his numbers in New Jersey, at least one of the seasons, he hit 0.5 points per game. I think now he only has 24 points in 65 games. Last year he had 28. So yay, he got a little bit better this year. But if you paid him 6.25 to be like, yay, he got a little bit better, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's tough because like you said, it was one of those ones at this time when it was signed. I was like, is this guy really worth? Especially again, when you talk about what age they signed him, I'm like, is this guy really worth it? But I think
Columbus tried that stupid thing where they did that thing, that the stupid thing that teams do where they hope that they trade for the upside. But the problem with that was there wasn't very much upside on Severson to begin with. There was like a little bit of upside. Maybe he just gets a tad bit better. Maybe it's like a 50. Maybe he gets to a 50-point guy.
I think they fell for this guy's on a bad team doing X. Maybe he'll do Y with us. And it's like, sometimes guys just don't. That just doesn't happen.
I think the worst part was they had to also sign and trade him too. So they actually had to give him an asset and then sign him. So I think that's what makes it worse for me.
I was tough on that because, again, for me with defensemen, it's like you have to be in the sense, like I said, are you an offensive guy? Are you a strictly defensive guy? Are you a good, well-rounded guy? And like he's
just not good at either. He's not really good at either, to be honest.
He's just
I've watched him.
Those types of average defensemen, those second, third pairing guys, like you can find those guys. You can trade like you can find those guys. Like, to me, is he much worse than Josh Manson? Is Josh Manson much worse than he is? Not really. And Josh Manson makes what, like a couple mil a year, right?
Yeah. Like, I'd rather pay again. We'd rather pay Josh Manson, and I'd rather deal with that than deal with Severson. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to my next pick here. This one's the opposite. So you said a guy whose contract was bad at the time. I feel bad picking this one because this one's just like aged bad, but at the time it made sense. I have Sean Couturier.
Okay, so he was my very next. He was like, I had him at 4 or 5 range, so he's right there for me. But
so what's tough is, like, at the time this deal was signed, you're talking about a guy he won the Selke. You're talking about a guy who was in Selke conversations, a really good two-way center. But after 2021-22, 0.59 points per game, 0.51 points per game, 0.48 points per game. Hasn't really been healthy consistently either. And the Flyers currently have him playing on the third line behind Noah Cates and Ryan Poehling. Like, think of those two names. Noah Cates and Ryan Poehling. Like, one thing with a lot of these contracts you're realizing is these teams, like, it's not like these guys are being buried behind elite players. These teams are like, we need you to play well, and you're not.
Well, also, just to highlight the one on Cates, I think with Cates, what the Flyers tried to do is they tried to play him further up the lineup to, try to trade him. So they'd rather do that with him than like play Couturier, the guy that they paid this much money to. Plus, I think with Couturier too, I think he missed that. I think that 2022-23 year, he missed the full year too. So you have the injury risk with him. And there was, I think when he was coming back from his injury, there was like, I think people mentioned there was a chance that he just wouldn't come back because I think his injury
LTIR,
yeah, it was a pretty severe injury from what I remember. I don't remember what it was exactly, but ever since he's come back, he hasn't looked like the same player. I think it's a combination of father time. He is 30, 32 now, plus the injury that he had is just affecting his play, and it does suck because Pete Couturier was just a damn good
really
player.
Good player, yeah. Like,
and it sucks to have that robbed of him.
I feel bad that this one is on the list just because, again, it's like one of those contracts where at the time I thought it was a good deal and it's aged horribly, but I have to be objective here. Like to me, this is easily a top 5 worst contract in the NHL. Who do you have next?
All right, so I'll go next. I'll go with another defenseman. I'll go Brady Shea. I know this
Okay.
one was just signed. This one was just signed recently, but I think it's more for how Nashville's trajectory has just gone from. They look like they were on the up because last year, without all these signings, they made the playoffs, and everyone thought, oh hey, or at least I don't remember they got made the playoffs, so they got close. Anyways, point is, they look like a much better team last year under Burnett, and everyone thought, oh hey, with all these signings they make, surely they can at least get out of the first round, maybe even like steal another series. Plus they had Saros, so everyone thought, oh, this team's gonna be good. Somehow this team has just gone from signing all these guys just being total trash. Apparently, I hate to say this, but
they're like a top 5 lottery pick. Which, okay, look, I thought they'd be a second round exit. I did not think this is like the Murphy's Law, everything that could go wrong scenario.
So the reason why I put this contract on here, and the reason why I put this contract on here is, first of all, he's 6 years left after this year, by the way, at $7 million per year. He's a fifth. He got a 15-team no trade list. So please explain to me why Brady Shea is getting protection. Look, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. But
every team needs to be protected from going to Winnipeg. No kidding. Every team. Every player.
These, man, I see some of the players that have no movement clauses or no trade clauses, or even like modified no trade clauses. Yeah, and I'm wondering, man, I don't want to say it's like the neighborhood. You know that guy that drives the candy truck around the neighborhood and just hands it out? It really does feel like that at times. But with Shea, his numbers have gone down, obviously. And his defensive play, which was at least solid with Carolina, just hasn't looked great in Nashville. And it's starting to also look like that as he was more like the result of the system in Carolina.
Product of Rod, yeah.
Yeah, rather than he was actually a good player. Plus, if you're in Nashville now and your team, you're basically battling for a top 5 pick, you're stuck with him for the next 6 years. No one's going to want that contract. He's on the wrong side of 30, so he's only going to continue to get worse. There's no hope of him, finding his game, because there's one thing that's going to become apparent with all these contracts. A lot of these contracts are guys that are getting older that we know they just aren't going to get better, and Father Time is just going to continue to catch up with them.
I think another issue too with the Shea thing is just like, okay, he's an offensive defenseman really reliant on his foot speed. Now, here's the problem. You sign him to a team where Roman Josi will never be bumped off the power play and is one of the best offensive defensemen in the league. So, like, in a way, you're almost taking one of Shea's best strengths, which is, what he can do on... Because realistically, power play 1 plays most of the time, right? And... Also, again, as his speed declines, guys that are really reliant on speed, I'm always hesitant to sign long-term because those are the guys that age the worst. Because as their speed declines, they lose a big part of.
Well, I think that's not just speed though, right? I think it's also just any guy you sign with good physical attributes or any good attributes of those kinds. They're always going to age badly. So, for example, I think with power forwards,
Ryan Callahan's a perfect example.
Yeah, power forwards fall off a cliff just because their body just can't take it anymore because all the hits they take, all the hits they dish out, it just takes a toll on their body to the point where things just kind of bottom out for them, right?
The exception might be Tom Wilson, because that dude's built like a god.
Well, I was also going to say, somehow he hit 30 goals this year. And Washington, I think apparently this is just the year reverse. Aging in reverse. Although I was going to say, it feels like, whereas Murphy's Law hit Nashville, everything else just went right for Washington. Hit on Thompson. Pierre-Luc Dubois went from one of the worst contracts in hockey to... I'm not going to say
that's another guy played himself off the list, right?
Off the list, exactly. And then Ovechkin refound
I
his
think Washington gave Nashville a puck and stole their talent, like how the Monstars did in Space Jam. That has to be one of the only.
Well, I was gonna say wasn't there that movie with Kevin Durant and that kid, and the kid got all of Durant's talent. There was that one too. I don't remember which movie that was, but similar idea. One guy just took it all from the other one.
All right, moving on to the next one here. So you have Brady Shea. Another contract signed in this last offseason. So there's a theme here. Also another guy relying on foot speed. Chandler Stevenson. This is bad. So by every metric available, Chandler Stevenson's been horrible this year. And the two things he's good at, his foot speed and his playmaking, have fallen off a cliff since he signed with Seattle. And they have him on board for 6.25 mil average annual value for another 6 years. And, of course, because, everyone gets one, a no-move clause.
And the worst part is the next 3 years, it's a full no movement clause. The 3 years after that, I think it's another 10-team no trade list. I don't know why all these teams do these weird no trade list 10-team. I don't get. Look, my other thing is like, look, you either give them the full clause, or you just don't give them anything. I don't get why it just suddenly like. I personally don't get it.
It's not like a get out of jail free card because those teams, you know what they do? The teams they pick for those like things are either like ideal situations or like teams that wouldn't trade for them anyway. So it's like basically a no move clause without being.
Also, I was gonna say too. I feel like I think those lists usually are submitted like yearly too. So it's like even if one team situation gets worse and you want to trade him there, he probably just gonna put that team on the list the next year, right? Or some kind of thing. So it's not like I don't think it's not even a get out of jail free. It's literally just why is this even here? It might as well just be the full no movement clause. But with Stevenson, I hate to say this, but even last year with Vegas, he only looked really good when he played with Mark Stone. And I think some of the metrics I can't remember where I saw it, and I don't have it pulled up here, unfortunately. But I think when he didn't play with Mark Stone, and when Stone was basically hurt, he just wasn't the same kind of player. And Seattle signing him also just didn't make much sense either. I hate to say this, Seattle was just kind of middling, and they just kind of added another middling kind of player. So it's not like Stevenson was going to push the needle for them anyway. So the signing kind of confused me to begin with, and it just looks even worse too because he was never a good goal scorer to begin with, and I think it looks even worse this year because he doesn't score a lot. And Seattle's trying to go into it. Looks like they're trying to commit to a rebuild now. But they're just stuck with all these bad contracts. Grubauer, Stevenson.
The other problem, too, is like, so he's a playmaker relying on speed. Speed on a long-term contract for a guy turning 30, just never, banking on that never ends well. He's not a volume shooter, so he can't, like, rely on his goaltending. So it's pretty much his speed creating playmaking chances. And since his foot speed's declined for some reason, the playmaking just hasn't been there. And you're talking about paying a guy, again, entering his age 30 year, who only hit 0.81. He's only been over 0.8 twice in his career. Like, and again, and you point out the numbers, like the difference with Mark Stone and without Mark Stone is so substantial. It's like, this was a contract I felt wasn't going to age great to begin with. And now the problem is like, if you're Seattle, you have Beniers who you want to be your number one center. Ideally, you want Shane Wright at some point to be your number two, hopefully, right? And so what's your plan now? You're going to have Chandler Stevenson as an overpaid third-line center, ideally? Or if you draft a center in the top 5, top 6 this year, like again, it's like, it's just weird. It's a weird contract that didn't need to be done, but here we are, and now you're stuck with it.
I was also going to say, too, with the playmaking, the problem with Seattle is they don't score a lot of goals, so even if you get a guy that, is good at playmaking, it doesn't do very much if your team can't convert the chances to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, the move just didn't make any sense at all the time. It looks even worse now that they're trying to commit to a rebuild because they're going to be stuck with that contract.
I definitely think Ron Francis should take way more heat than he does, just because, remember, at the time of the expansion draft, like, yes, he made some good signings, but he completely misevaluated how good this team was. And to me, like, one of the jobs you have to do as a GM is to be very honest about what your roster is and be correct in the evaluation of it. And he completely whiffed on what the evaluation of this team was. And it's
That's
led
fair.
to some.
I think he also overpredicted. Like, he thought this team was way better than it was. I think that, like, I hate to say when they beat, like, obviously the 2 years prior when they beat Colorado in that first round of the playoffs, I think they kind of used that
more of a blip.
It's more of a blip than anything else, and they thought, oh, maybe if we add to that, we'll get even further than that. But the problem was, I hate to say that, but that whole series, even when you watched it, it felt. I'm not gonna say it felt lucky that Seattle got out of that series to win it, but it kind of felt like obviously that was just the one that the bounces kind of went their way, and they were the ones that profited off of it, right?
Like, I'm not one of those on paper guys because again, you look at Nashville as the example, but that definitely felt like a team that was like buoyed heavily, and now it's fallen back to earth. And again, that caused like Stevenson to be signed, Montour to be signed. Now Montour's I think is a good player, so it's fine. But it's the idea of these long-term contracts that don't fit with your timeline now. And now if you're Seattle, well, you have these guys, but now you're rebuilding. So what do you really? You have these guys just making a bunch of money, just basically sitting there. And realistically, if those guys are playing prominent roles on your team, well, Stevenson, not Montour, but if Stevenson's playing a prominent role on your team, you're not going anywhere, right? So you're basically hoping for long term that he kind of takes a third, fourth line role, and you're paying this guy. Again, you're paying this guy what you're paying this guy. It's just like, I don't know.
Now, I hate to say this, but if you're gonna play a guy in the third, fourth line role, you'd rather just bring up one of your young guys that doesn't have as much upside and have them do that instead. Because at least you get the guy on a cheaper contract, and sure, with younger guys, maybe if it looks like they have limited upside, maybe they have a bit more upside than you think, and you get more out of them. Whereas with Stevenson, you know what you're getting out of him. Plus, he is just going to continue to age and get worse.
Yeah. All right. Who do you got next? This is where are we at now? We've made 3 picks. No, I've made my 4th. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm making my 4th pick. My next one is Mika Zibanejad. I know some people might hate on this one a little
because this has been his one bad year.
But I feel like the argument's kind of the same with Shea though. I mean, Brady Shea looked pretty good like last year, and Carroll looked pretty good like last year, and suddenly like with Nashville it just looks terrible, right? And the problem with Zibanejad too is like I feel like Shea maybe could have gotten some of the benefit of the doubt with like switching teams, whereas Zibanejad doesn't have that. Like he's on the same team, they've kept most of the same guys around. They've also actually managed to trade some of their bad contracts too. So they got rid of the Trouba one, for example. Like just to give them some space to actually make some moves. And in fact, they let them get JT Miller. Basically, the Rangers just get handed everything on a silver platter, apparently. But with Zibanejad, 5 years left at 8.5 AAV. They can't move him because he has a full no movement clause for his entire contract. The problem is mainly this year. His production just kind of fallen off a cliff. He has 50 points in 70 games. I think from what I've read about from what Rangers fans have said, I hate to say this, apparently it just looks like it's not that it looks like he doesn't care out there, but at times the effort is kind of to be questioned. And if his offense is already going down and he's getting paid this much money, if you're the Rangers and you're trying to contend, you just can't have that.
I think so. Does him moving to the wing and playing, because he's played well with Miller a bit since moving to the wing, does that change your mind of it, or just you don't want to pay this much for a winger?
Well, I think the other thing too is even though he's played better, he still hasn't looked like it's better, but it's still not very good, right? I would have been fine with it if he went to the wing and he's just like was suddenly like lighting it up. But like I think I have the fantasy app, so I'll just pull up Zibanejad. Let's just take a look at his numbers just to like we'll pull him up here. Yeah, I'm looking at his numbers now. Sure, he had like a decent stretch, but like his last, I'm gonna say like 10-ish games, he has like 4 points, even on the wing.
Okay. All right. Fair.
So there was a stretch where it was better, and then there was a stretch where it's gotten worse, which I think kind of sums up the Rangers season as a whole. Everybody's had stretches where they've just been bad. But if I'm Zibanejad, you're forced to kind of play him on the wing. And you also traded Philip like Hedl too. Like, who are you going to play as your, like, I guess you want Trocheck to be your second line center, sure. But it's like, I don't know. I'd rather have Trocheck as more of a third line center. Like, he has the production to be a second line center, but if you're going to be a contending team, you want that really strong center depth. And sure, they have it with Miller and Trocheck, but then I think after that, it just kind of falls off.
All right. My next one's going to be a hot take one. And again, can play themselves off the list. With my 5th pick, Yuri Slafkovsky. Okay. So here's the thing. Hear me out. I know people are going to say he's young. SJ, power forwards take time. SJ, you're throwing in the towel way too early. You're an idiot. Here's my take. So he's 7.6 AAV, 7.6 million AAV for 8 years, and he's going to be UFA at age 29. But here's the thing. He's supposed to be a power forward, right? But he doesn't really play like one. He barely shoots. He's like less than 2 shots on goal per game, which is crazy for a winger. And he barely hits. And when you watch him play, he doesn't play like a power forward. He's very passive on the ice. There's a real lack of fluidity when he moves. Like, watch him and watch other power forwards. The lack of fluidity is a real issue, especially this young. You normally when guys lose that fluidity.
I think the most frustrating thing, though, I hate to say this, but the most frustrating thing with the big forwards is when they play like small guys. And that's kind of how Slavkovsky plays his game. He's 6'3", 225, but he plays as if he's 5'10", 185. I hate when big forwards play that because then everybody just kind of figures that out and just hits them and just like bangs them around.
Well,
and then,
also, it's like, what was the point of your size? Like,
yeah, like exactly. What's the point of your size? Yeah.
My thing that bugs me about it too is like when you look at it again, it's the lack of fluidity. It's the lack of I don't explain. Like you watch a really good power forward at their, I don't say even at their prime, but like there are power forwards that came into the league younger that showed a bit more, and you can't blame his situation. He has deployment with two of the best young players in the league in Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. He has a great young playmaking defenseman in Lane Hudson. So it's not like he's surrounded by garbage and that's why he can't produce. He has one of the best situations a young player could have. And again, if he was shooting and hitting but the production wasn't there, okay, I could live with that and I could understand, but none of that is happening. Like, watch him and a guy like Byfield, Byfield's a bigger guy too. And while they're growing pains with Byfield, you see a massive difference in the way Byfield plays versus the way Slavkovsky plays.
I think with the whole Byfield thing too, even though he's been slow to develop, you're at least fine because it at least looks like he's developing and progressively over time. With Slavkovsky, I hate to say it, it just doesn't look like he's developing. And also, again, the thing with the big guy playing like a smallish forward, I hate those kinds of players because those kind of players get figured out really quickly in the NHL. And I think that's kind of what happened with Slavkovsky, is that at the lower like junior levels, he could kind of get away with it because he was a bigger dude, and people don't usually like to hit bigger dudes in junior. I don't know why that's such a thing, but when you're in like the juniors or like even overseas, you can kind of get away with this. But when you're playing in the NHL, you can't be a big dude playing like a small guy.
Like, okay, let me give you an example. So Tom Wilson didn't score a lot when he was starting out, right? Like it just wasn't really. But if you look at his hits per game, for example, 2.4, 3.06, 3.09, 2.91, 3.21. Guys who are power forwards generally are really physical coming into the league. The shots on goal can take some time, sure too. But again, he just doesn't play like that type of guy. Like, especially for a guy who's drafted number 1 overall. Yes, I understand some things might take some time, but it's like, can you shoot a little bit more? Can you be a bit more physical? Here's the thing too. I'd even be okay. Like, Rantanen's a big guy, but he doesn't play like a big guy. But he uses his size to create angles to shoot and shoot at a high volume. He doesn't even do that. So, like,
well, I was also going to also say Rantanen has elite superstar production. So I think it's different when you're a guy like Slavkovsky. You don't put up very much production to begin with.
And like, again, here's the thing, right? It's like, yes, he could grow into his contract, but like, again, you're putting $7.6 million up until age 29 on betting that he will, and it just hasn't been there yet. So I have him here because, like, in terms of guys with like. No one left except for one guy on my list. Every other contract I have on my honorable mentions or close to is either lower AAV or shorter term. So like for me it had to be him here. I know it's a hot take because again, he's young, he's number 1 overall. I get it, the whole he's developing thing, but I haven't seen this power forward yet. And I haven't even seen like a high volume shooter that's like using his body to create shots yet. So it's like, if you're not either one of those, what are you doing?
That's fair. I guess, so for Slavkovsky, for me, I had him as more of an honorable mention. I had him around 13, 14. My whole thing with him is maybe I'm a little bit more forgiving with the younger players. It's at least like,
It's a hot take pick. I'm there. Like,
it's fair. I'm not disagreeing with your pick. I think my thing is, I just hate the older guys with the anchor contracts because there's no upside with those. This one you might have some upside. You can at least hope for it, but I do see your point. Like his production just hasn't been there, and I think it's worse because if you compare him to a guy such as Tom Wilson wasn't drafted first overall. That's the other thing too. Like he was a first rounder. He was I think was it 16th overall, I think. And over time you did see it with at least with Tom Wilson that his game progressed. Didn't shoot very much at first, hit a ton. Nowadays, shoots a decent amount, still hits a ton. And hate to say this, but he finally got a 30-goal season too. So there's been progression with Tom Wilson's game. Whereas with Slafkovsky, sure, his productions had some progression to an extent, but that's the only kind of progression I've seen from it otherwise. And it's worse too because he's a big guy and he's getting hit around, and he's it's funny because I think it's not that it's funny, but like he got a concussion, and I hate when big guys get concussions just because like you're supposed to you're a bigger, stronger dude just to be able to avoid those. Yet he's getting hit around like that, which is kind of annoying.
My best example of a power forward, I think, is like Ryan Callahan, right? So Ryan Callahan came into the league at age 21. First couple of years didn't play a lot, right? But age 23. Again, even though the production was there, only 0.49 points per game, you're talking about a guy that hit 3.27 times per game, shot 2.93 times per game, right? And that was like kind of a consistent trend for most of his career until he declined with Tampa. Like, even if the numbers aren't... And here's the thing. How are you going to score more goals if you don't shoot? Right? So it's like, again, I just have him here. I get people that are like, again, this is a terrible take. I just, right now, the way it's trending, I'm just not a fan of where this is going.
Fair. I think I might follow you on this one where this guy could play himself off the list on my next pick, but I'm going to go with Elias Pettersson, and I know people are going to say that the production.
So again, I'm with you. I am with you.
So with Elias Pettersson, I think last year he signed, was it last year, like middle of the season last year where he signed that deal. So he has about 7 years left at $11.6 million per year. He has a full no movement clause, so you can't do very much with him. The problem with Pettersson is, I think we discussed this in the last podcast. I discussed it quite a bit extensively, but he's not shooting enough. And one of his best attributes is his one-timer, and his wrist shot's also it's a pretty solid shot. So it's not, one of the worst shots in the league. He's not skating as fast. He's not skating as well either. So people have wondered if there's an injury. But with Pettersson, he's just not doing very much. And the worst part about it is because of his rift with JT Miller, the Canucks were forced to move one of the two players. And they ended up moving Miller. And I hate to say this, but despite New York's struggles, Miller's looked pretty good in New York. Beast. And it's been miles better than Pettersson. And even now, even though Pettersson's production has improved over the last 10 games, I've looked at his shots on goal. He's still not shooting very much, which is an issue. Because I hate to say this, but when you're an elite forward, one thing you need to do is you need to shoot a ton. Because you at least got to help. It helps you open up passing lanes and open up like shots for the other players on your team, right? Because everyone knows you're going to pass the puck. They're just going to play off of you kind of thing, right? And I think that's kind of what's happening with Pettersson is because he's not shooting very much, the other team's defenses can focus on the other guys, such as, for example, a guy like Besser, who everyone knows is probably going to shoot, right? So that's hurting Pettersson in that sense. Also, his production just been like atrocious this year.
Ever since he signed that extension, because people talk about 1.09 points per game last year, but everyone forgets, like, post him signing that extension, that last like month and a half going into the playoffs, he did not play well. So this isn't just
also,
I was
going to say with the playoffs one too. The playoffs one too. I remember so many comments in the Canucks Reddit thread where they said that if we got any bit of production out of Pettersson, we would have beaten the Oilers. And I think that's the one that still bothers it. And I don't know if anyone's been following the Canucks Reddit ever since, but I have not seen a player hated this much other than Pettersson, because that Canucks Reddit is ready to skin him alive and roast him in front of downtown, or in downtown basically.
No, what's crazy is like he played better in the playoffs when he was I think at age 21 year he was a point per game in the playoffs. So it's like something's going on. And again, maybe next year he just needed a year and like he comes back beasting again. Great, but yeah, if this is what they're getting going forward. Not only is this an all-time bad contract, this was an all-time bad bet. Because again, you talked about it. You hitched your wagon to him. You signed guys. You traded JT Miller, who's the better player. And you're not rebuilding because you've signed guys like Marcus Pettersson makes no sense as a signing if you're rebuilding, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Kevin Lankinen makes no sense as a signing if you're rebuilding. So if this doesn't work, like it's catastrophic.
Well,
I'll say this. It's way more catastrophic, maybe except Huberdeau, than any other contract on this list. No question.
Well, I was gonna say his production also is like really close to Huberto's production right now, because Huberto's production was less than 0.7 points per game. He's at 0.71. Like he's not. It's not even. He's only slightly better. And I hate to say this, but he has way more talent around him than Huberto. He has Quinn Hughes, who's, I hate to say this, is probably one of the best best defensemen in the league. Well, I mean, it's like as in like, you know, he has that much talent around him. Like, it's not like Quinn Hughes is some bum like lower.
Quinn Hughes
like,
is dying for support on that team right now. Like,
yo, Quinn Hughes is that guy. He's that guy in the ocean who doesn't have a life jacket and is just trying to like tread himself to the surface. And Elias Pettersson is just swimming around him with the life jacket and being like, "Bro, you okay? You good?" and doing nothing to help him.
What are the odds we'd have 2 Eliases on this list? Right?
I know, right? And you know what's worse? I hate to say this, but the other Elias Pettersson might be the better Elias Pettersson right now. Low key.
Contract. Yeah, like I said, NHL, where nobody's walking with Elias right now. All right, I got my last pick here. This was a tough one. It was between 3. There's 3 names here. I'll throw them out in the honorable mentions. I have Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Look, like this guy can't score. He can't find the net at all. Like, career 0.41 points per game.
Well, I was also going to say too, if you're planning to troll in the NHL, you might as well at least do a good job, because for those who don't know what happened with Kotkaniemi,
so bad. Montreal got the last laugh in the end.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know, Carolina threw the offer sheet at Kotkaniemi. I think it was like $8 million or something, and they also threw a signing bonus of, hear me out, $20. And that $20 was a reference to Ahu's jersey number. Exactly. So Carolina tried to pull they tried to get too cute with trolling, and they basically shot themselves in the foot. But like, I can see your point with the Kotkaniemi. They've signed him to what? That's the contract.
So he's 4.82. His 4.82 AAV, but there's 5 years left.
It's the length of the.
Yeah, it's 5 years left. It's a modified Tantino trade shows. Again, he's a 0.41 point per game guy. He's not a Selke level defender, so he's way below average as a second line center and not good defensively to be a third line center. He's less than 0.5 points per game his entire career. And in the playoffs last year, he had 1 point. 1. He had 1 more than me and you.
And by the way, keep in mind, we don't play top 6 minutes. He plays top 6 minutes. Just for anyone who wants to know that.
Like, he's never hit 20 goals. He's never hit 30 assists. Like, what? Like, again, I get it. It's only 4.82, but, like, that 4.82 can be spent on a lot of better players. And, honestly, this might be as good as he's going to get. Like, there's nothing in his profile. He doesn't shoot a lot. He's a decent. He's not a massive playmaker. Like, this is as good as he is. And again, if he was like Jordan Staal, like Selke level good, I'd have less of an. I wouldn't even have him on this list. But it's like he's not. So he's not. Again, he's not a great defender. He's not a decent offensive player. Like, what are we? What like? What? What's his role really?
You know the worst part about this too? So first of all, you said he doesn't shoot very much. It's worse now because his shots on goal has gone down, and it was already bad enough. I think he doesn't even have triple digits in terms of shots. He has 99 shots on goal this year. 99 as a top 6 as a top 6 forward, and I don't know how as a top 6 forward you shoot that little, but that definitely explains why you only have 11 fucking goals.
Which would make sense if he was like a really good playmaker, but he's not, because he's again never hit over 30 assists.
It would make sense if he was a third line center, but he's not a third line center. They play him on the second line, and they actually have decent guys. They've played Jarvis with him at some point. They've played good players with him. It's not like they give him nothing.
No, man, I hate, like, it's funny because when Montreal signed this deal, when Carolina signed him to that offer sheet, I was like, does Carolina realize like this guy's barely hit over 0.4 points per game? Like, I don't get it. And I remember you saying when they took him in the draft, it was a massive reach. And like
it was a massive reach because they passed on. Guess who who was the next pick in the? Do you remember who was the next pick in the draft?
No,
Brady Tkachuk.
Oh,
it was Brady Tkachuk was the very next pick. So not only does it look bad enough that you gave you gave a good player to one of your rivals, basically. You sacked yourself with a guy who never developed, and the only laugh you got out of it was when another team tried to troll you.
Yeah, no, yeah, like, again, he would be way higher on like, to me, he's a worse player than, like, a lot of other guys we have on this list. Like, I'd rather have Couturier, I'd rather have Stevenson, like, just on the forwards. I'd obviously rather have Lindholm. It's just, again, it's just because the contract's lower and he's younger. That's really it.
Yeah, that's it. It's the AAV being basically less than 5 mils, basically what saves him.
Yeah. Who's your last one?
So my last one might be a bit of an interesting one, but I think this is just because it's so bad that they'd rather just not play him. But I'm gonna go Ryan Graves.
Okay, so I had him here too, but I had someone that was really close for a different reason. But okay, let's hear it.
So he's got 3 years left at 4.5 mil annually, and he has a 12-team no trade list. Someone please explain to me why Ryan Graves has that. And here's the worst part.
Maybe they thought it was Adam Graves, and they were like, "Oh shit!" when he came.
Bro, that argument doesn't even work, because at least if his first name started with an A, I would have been like, okay, fine. But, like, you don't even have the same, like, first initial, bro. Like, that doesn't work. So the worst part about this is it's been so bad that it's even worse than Severson. They've healthy scratched him at least 15 times. And this is a team that is the worst team in the league defensively. They give up the most high... Pittsburgh gives up the most high danger... I think they have the most high danger chances for, but they also give up the most high danger chances, too. So... they're so bad defensively, and they've also just said, we'd rather play somebody else. Fuck you. And they're paying him 4.5 mil. So they're basically 4.5 mil to scratch him 15 to 20 times a year.
Mm-hmm. So my thing with this is, again, and we talk about this theme I feel like a lot of this contract stuff comes back to themes, right? So it's like, what are you good at? What can you point to? And it's like, again, he has 27 points in 2 seasons with the Penguins, including... I swear he only has 3 this year, if I remember correctly.
He only has 3 points. There was. Okay. I think there was one point in the season where people were saying, like, how do you not have a single point?
And he's not an elite defensive defenseman, so you can't use that argument. And he plays way smaller than his size. So again, you're not scoring. You're not an elite defender. What are you doing? And right now what he's doing is he's either being scratched or he's playing sheltered third pairing minutes on one of the worst defensive teams in the league.
I feel like this is one of the few. Like, I remember when we all thought that Kyle Dubas was like a good GM. Like, I feel like now his Pittsburgh tenure has just kind of revealed how, I don't say how bad he is, but how inexperienced.
I think it's taken some of the luster off for sure.
Yeah, because between the Carlson trade, obviously, like, I can't believe San Jose managed to get rid of that contract. First of all, like, I know Carlson came off the 100-point season, but everyone kind of knew.
What's crazy is they got rid of it and then flipped Granlund, who was one of the parts. Like, they flipped so many guys from that too, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, they got a first out of that. So basically, they got a first for Carlson, essentially, which is I don't know how you managed to do that, but. Apparently, Mike Greer just has magic, just some kind of magic on this league or something. Well, at least with the Granlund one, I don't think he was the GM at the time when he made the Carlson trade. I could be wrong. I don't know the specifics of that, but
no, that was Doug. Armstrong. I can't remember who the. So I remember
see, that's the point. That's the point, though. But yeah, so I don't understand why Ryan Graves got a 6. So he has 3 years left. Yeah, but yeah, he got a 6-year deal. Like, Ryan Graves is not the kind of player that gets. I hate signing middling players to, like, long-term deals. Like, the biggest example for me is Pierre Engvall with the Islanders. 7 years. That 7-year deal.
That is one of my favorite ones.
The 7-year one. I think there's a few other. There's a couple other ones for sure. I know. I guess Miles Wood with Colorado. Like, he got 7 years. Mm-hmm. He's at least a decent player, so it's fine. 2.5 or 7's better than a lot of the other ones. But I don't like the idea of paying bottom 6 guys or like paying them for like 7 years,
especially when they end free agency. They're in their mid-30s. Yeah, no, for sure. All right. Before we summarize the list, any like notable, like 1 or 2 maybe notable honorable mentions you had? Or
so I had 2. So I had Morgan Riley and Steven Stamkos. Stamkos for a similar reason to like the Brady Shea one, where Stamkos' 5-on-5 play's kind of fallen off. Because even in his last year with Tampa, I think he was like minus like 24, which on a team such as Tampa and you made the playoffs, I don't know how you managed to do that playing on the first line. It just doesn't make any sense. And his production's also fallen off, right? I think he's like 40, is it 44 points? I could be wrong, but he has like 40 something points. He hasn't put up that kind of production. Plus 3 more years left. I think it's a full no movement clause, and you're paying him $8 million. and the production's only going to fall off even further. So that's a bad one there. And then with Morgan Riley, he's not a first pairing defenseman anymore. You're paying him 7.5 mil for another 5 years. He's also a smaller defenseman, so he doesn't defend very well. Like I've seen him in the front of the net, he gets bodied by the bigger forwards, and that just doesn't work. His production's gone down, and it's gotten so bad that Toronto would rather go with a 5-forward power play than play Morgan Riley. Yeah, they're playing a 5-forward power play. It's gotten so bad they said fuck it, we're not going to play Morgan Riley, we're not going to play OEL, we're just going to go with 5 forwards and just say fuck it.
I had one, and the only reason this didn't make my top 12 guys, because I think we had a lot of the top 12 guys similarly, funnily enough, is just because I know when he's healthy, he's a good player. So Josh Norris was my...
I was going to say Josh Norris is the other one, because he's just always hurt.
7.95 million AAV, 5 years left, modified 10 team, right? He's good when he plays, but the health is an issue. He's already hurt in Buffalo right now, and he's only played more than 60 games this season once. And that's when he showed you, when he's healthy, what he could be. It just sucks because, again, I think he's really good. It's the health could make this really bad landing on this list. So overall, again, we'll summarize the top 12 here. So first pick, Jonathan Huberdeau. Second pick, Darnell Nurse. Third pick, Elias Lindholm. Fourth pick, Damon Severson. Fifth pick, Sean Couturier. Sixth pick, Brady Shea. Seventh pick, Chandler Stevenson. Eighth pick, Mika Zibanejad. Ninth pick, Yuri Slavkovsky. 10th pick, Elias Pettersson. 11th pick, Elias Pettersson. And 12th pick, Ryan Graves.
I think 11th, or I think 10th pick was Elias Pettersson, but...
Yeah, 11th pick was Jesperi Kotkaniemi. 12th pick, Ryan Graves. I think that's a pretty good summary of the worst contracts in the NHL.
I was gonna joke. The only problem is if you wanted to build a team with those guys, you don't have a goalie to at least be in the net. But it's kind of funny that we didn't have any goalies on there. Or I think
it's a lot of centers.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean,
goalie contracts are weird. They're either now the market's almost countered on goalies where they're, for the most part, they're either really short term, they've been bought out, or they're worth what they're paid.
Yeah.
It's weird. The goalie market's really corrected itself. But that second pairing D market has not. That's
honestly, I feel like for any kind of D man, even I guess the first pairing ones are the fine ones, but I think especially the bottom pairing ones are the worst. The second pairing ones are okay.
Even Dallas has them. Ilya Lyubushkin and Matt Dunbar, even though they're not paid a lot, are just way overpaid for whatever they're contributing.
Well, yeah, Lyubushkin's making $3 million, right? Yeah. So it's I saw that one because I was looking at Bleacher Reports, worst contracts, and they had for Dallas, Lyubushkin was the worst one they had. Which I mean, it's not a great contract. Yeah, if that's the worst one, you're fine with it. I think Chicago had Connor Murphy's as their worst one because I think actually this is funny because this is coming into the season, but if Connor Murphy's your worst contract in Chicago now, you're probably okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So now we'll move on to Guess That Player, where we, again, each week, one of us picks a player for the other player to guess. Winner at the end of the season, including playoffs, gets a Jersey Mike sub. Right now we are tied on points. So each week, again, one of us picks a player. 3 points if you get it right on the first go. 2 points if you after the first hint. 1 point after the last hint. One of the hints is where they were born. Second hint is when they were drafted. This one's kind of interesting because you'll see why for a couple reasons. So I'm going to put it up right now. 1 second.
Well, I was going to say the theme is bad contract, so this guy probably has a bad contract is all I'm guessing.
Damn it. Beat me too.
Well, I mean, we only had one thing we talked about, so it's not... It really couldn't have been... There wasn't really much you could have...
1 second here. Let me grab it.
All good. Take your time.
Yeah, I know. It's he knows the.
I'll admit you kind of. Well, I mean, if I don't guess this, this might look worse on me than anything else.
No. It's an interesting one. It's if you see it, you'll know, but if you don't know, it might take you a little bit of time.
Okay.
If that does that make any sense?
Kind of. Okay. Well, I mean, I have to be able to see it first, so.
Okay. 1 second. Let me check. Make sure that's the one. And also his career arc is interesting. 1 second. Okay, got it. No window.
Yeah, make sure you share the right window. I don't want to see anything I'm not supposed to be seeing.
So here it is.
Oh wait, I think I know this one off the bat.
Really?
Wait, no, is it? Wait, I'm trying to think. Wait, hold on.
Damn.
Yeah,
Like
I think I know this one. Okay, I'm just gonna guess it right now. Or should I make this more interesting by not guessing it? I don't know.
It's up to you. If you feel like you want a hint to narrow it down, you can do that.
I feel like it has to be this one. Like I don't know. I could be wrong here, but I'm trying to think. Okay, so he played in Detroit, then he played in Philly, and then he signed with after the good year he signed in Buffalo. And I think if I remember correctly, that's probably when he got bought out in Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken. There's one guy I'm thinking of that's clicking right away. And it makes sense because I don't remember him being he wasn't in the league very long, from what I remember.
That's what I'm saying. This is one of those ones. If you see it and you know. But if you want to hint, like if I can narrow it down in any way.
No, I think I'm just gonna guess it because like either I just don't get the points. Like, is this player Villaleno?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
So
yeah, because I recognize the Detroit to Philly to Buffalo right away because I remember he signed with Buffalo, then he just fell off the cliff.
So why this is a bad contract for people that don't know? Villaleno signed a 6-year, $27 million deal with Buffalo Sabres. He made $2.7 million per goal on this contract.
Oh shit! He only scored 10 goals. I didn't even see that.
$2.7 million per goal. This is one of the all-time bad It's funny because I think they signed him and Christian Ehrhoff in the same offseason.
Yeah, they bought out Ehrhoff.
They had to buy them both out. They had to buy
yeah.
So this one was interesting because, like I said, it's one of the all-time bad contracts when you consider the lack of production for what you got. Which, again, $2.7 million per goal. Bagman Villaleno. Bagman.
Also, this is just a funny thing to know, but I just saw the Selkie 36, and that just made me laugh that they actually showed that as like awards.
I know, right?
Do you care about someone who finished 36th in voting? Like that's
you know what's sad? So there's that year where he played 8 games. So if you look at it, this is a classic example of like why not to bet on an outlier year. He shot 16% that year with Philly versus a career 11.8 overall. And I'm not counting the year where he only played 8 games and scored 2. That doesn't count. But like you compare the rest of his career to that, and it's like, again, this is one of those contracts that felt bad at the time and was even worse after.
Well, I was going to say, it's quite weird, too. His shooting percentage arc is weird. Like, obviously, coming into the league, didn't shoot very much, but got a decent amount of goals. So, obviously, 29.4. Then it fell off really hard. Like, shooting 7% for a forward isn't super great. Then he shot back up to 16%. 10% in Buffalo is okay, but it seems like his shots on goal kind of fell off a cliff. And then that year where he only played 8 games, the year where he only played 8 games, if you saw that, you would have been like, oh, maybe he at least figured it out. And then the next year, it's like, nope, he lost everything. And then
one of the most disastrous off seasons ever, like for a team. But all jokes aside, like I said, I think that was a fair one because, like I said, it's either you'll get this right away or you'll spend time thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I was going to pick him or Ehrhoff, but I was like, this one's just more funny because, like, at least Ehrhoff had like really good Vancouver years. I think he was top 10 in Norris voting during those years. This was just funny because, again, he made $2.7 million per goal, which is awesome.
I think I'm just trying to look at Ehrhoff's stats now. I want to pull them up for a second, but I remember he did he also play for San Jose? He played for San Jose, then Vancouver, then okay, that's what it was. Okay, because I feel like if I saw the like San Jose, then the Buffalo, I probably would have recognized it because I remember like Buffalo bought him out like in a similar time frame, but that one might have been a little bit. I might have needed like the first second. If you told me Germany, then I probably would have. If I asked where he was born,
this one I just thought was fun.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our show for today. Any other things you wanted to talk about before we signed off? Or?
No, I think that's probably it. I mean, this was kind of more of a fun. We went for a little bit more of a fun and kind of like interesting kind of like draft style episode rather than just talking about storylines, which we normally do. It's nice to mix it up once in a while for the viewers too, right? Because you guys
for sure
probably see some of the stories itself on like the web, so you're probably like, well, I've already kind of heard of it. Whereas this one's kind of something you definitely weren't expecting, probably.
Yeah. All right, so that's for next week. I think we'll do like our 5 best and worse team situations or something like that. Or we'll just talk about if like it really starts to heat up during the playoffs or close to the playoffs. We'll probably talk about that a bit more too. Either or. Anyways, for us at Tone the Crease, I'm SJ. That's WillyDubz. We're signing out. We'll catch you later.
Peace. See you guys.